Good afternoon, everyone. It's your girl, Miss Anna, and I'm coming to you straight out of NYC on this not so hot, humid, but still hot Saturday afternoon. So I just want to say that really slow because I'm gathering my notes together because I'm going to do my review for P-Valley Season 1, Episode 2, titled Scars. So this is the second episode of one of my favorite series, which is on Starz, P-Valley. And I just love the show. So I'm going to be doing this review. And then I'm going to do episode 3 today of season 1. And then I'm going to jump back tomorrow. I'm going to jump forward to do season 2 again, because it's on my other channel. So the start of the episode titled Scars, it opens up with a young guy who is giving us mulatto, but more so biracial energy, if you know what I mean. And this young man is in the fantasy room. And if you remember the first episode, the fantasy room is the room where it's for special requests. So you have to pay high money to use that room, and it really goes down in a fantasy room, okay? It's XXX rated. So we see this young man, full throttle nudity. Shout out to Starz for offering the ladies, such as myself, full throttle nudity of men, because I'm sick and tired of them doing that to us women, okay? And that's the one thing I didn't like about Power. We never saw a full nudity of the men. We only saw nudity of women. I don't like chicks. What's that? What is that going to do for me? You know? But anyway, we basically see this young man strapped up, choker covering his neck, balls and peen out. And we see Mercedes is sitting in the chair. And Keyshawn is basically saying, "You've been a bad, bad boy." And he's like, "Yes, master, I've been a bad, bad boy." And so Mercedes is in the high chair smoking because she's basically like the queen at this moment. So she basically is saying, "Master said you was a bad boy." And he says, Master Sadie, please, please, please. He's like, "I've been bad." So then Master Sadie's basically handles Kyle, because his name is Corbin, handles Corbin, okay? So what happens, we see Autumn dancing with a stud. She's dancing in the champagne room with a stud. And what's his name? Uncle Clifford says, "Pay attention." No, Diamond says, "Pay attention. You need to focus." And the woman's like, "Yeah, focus." So she's a stud. Now, I knew that it was a stud, which is like what we would call, a female, like a lesbian, but more of like a manly one. And it's an old school term that goes way back to 100 years ago. So the woman is throwing dollars on Autumn. And Autumn basically sees Corbin being tied up. And so the door closes and you hear his ass getting whooped. So Diamond regulates the champagne room and the fantasy room because it can go down. So just in case it gets out of hand, Diamond's in there to go in there and regulate. Whereas Big L, he regulates the money. So Big L is more of the manager. Uncle Clifford is a proprietor. Diamond is the bouncer, security, and he does other things too. You'll see later on in the series. And Mercedes is the bottom bitch. Keyshawn is, the star, like the pretty girl. And Gidget is part of the Trinity. And Autumn is a messy girl with messy problems, So after that, we basically see DJ Never Scared, who I like and I miss him. I really enjoyed season 1 because I really like DJ Never Scared. And so we see that it's Fantasy Fridays. And this Fantasy Friday, it was basically stud night. So you see all the studs are basically gathering, dancing with the women. You know, they probably brought their own chicks, or they just probably came in there dolo and probably, you know, just came there to have a good time and spend it. Now, the stud really was free-hearted with her money when she was, you know, tricking on Autumn, because she basically said, you know, thank you. And the stud was so short. She was short. And basically, it was kind of comical because they was holding hands when they left. And the stud said, thank you. She's like, oh, you know, you're welcome. And it was interesting because Autumn, what I learned in that moment is that Autumn was comfortable around them. Actually more comfortable dancing with the stud than she was dancing with the guys. And I think it's because the stud wasn't trying to do extra. Whereas Pico, he wanted all of Autumn. The stud was just paying for the experience of, you know, dancing with a woman. And the stud did show respect. And that was, you know, the writers, I know what they were trying to convey, that the studs usually are more respectful to women than men. Which, you know, some of y'all may go on and agree. Some of y'all may go on and disagree. That's up for debate. I may do a live on that. So anyway, she sees Uncle Clifford, and Uncle Clifford basically is talking to one of the patrons at the bar. And then all of a sudden, she dipping out and like, not so fast. That's what Uncle Clifford is saying. So Uncle Clifford is basically letting her know, you've been working at this club for a week and you still ain't brought in no ID. So she's like, but why you gotta have an ID to work here? So Uncle Clifford's like, no. I'm an independent contractor, okay? Whatever goes on with your paperwork, I don't care. So he was like, basically, I don't do that paying under the table stuff. And so Autumn's like, well, Maite must have basically did it because she's able to work here. He was like, I don't know what Maite was able to do, but her papers are straight. So Autumn was being messy, saying that Maite is here illegally. And what Maite probably did, if she's here illegally, she got somebody down in the immigration office to do her papers right. So anyway, Autumn is really underhanded. She gonna say, after Clifford say no ID, no twerking, she gonna say, but I didn't know you needed to basically have papers to work in a brothel. And so Clifford snaps and says to her, when she says, so Mercedes and Keyshawn basically is in the champagne room needing ID and paperwork. I didn't know they do that. I didn't know that. So he lets her know, listen, it don't matter what Mercedes and Keyshawn do in the champagne room. All that matters is you don't have your papers, you ain't going to be working here. Okay? And that's that. And I'm going to say you something. Autumn, I know she comes from a bad situation, but I don't like Autumn with her funny ways. She got those funny ways, and she likes to throw people under the bus. There was no need to mention Maite. There was no need to mention Sadie's and Keyshawn. Their papers are good. They've been working in the club for years. You need to work on the fact that Lakeisha Savage ain't you. And you should have got your fake ID straight before you enter that club. But anyway, we see Mercedes is basically happy that she ain't going to be in the club. Because a few more weeks, she going to be the proprietor of the dance studio where she's going to be teaching people to dance, especially training the chucalissa challenges. Okay, so the next scene, we see the Mexicans are still outside, And many of them are basically buying Oxycontin from Big L. And he's selling the Oxycontin to keep the business, which is the Pynk, to stay afloat. So what these guys do, they go to the chicken Nexum checks. I think that's what it's called. And it's a place where they basically cash out their checks for them working. And they take the money and they basically go to the Pynk to buy the Oxycontin, and they're probably buying it to sell. Okay? So they're buying bottles of this. Now, what I believe, going back to the first episode, remember one of the Mexican men paid him with a promised land check of $178. So probably what happened was he probably sold some of his land that was near the area where Promised Land wants to build a casino. And they probably gave him a measly $178, and he took the check to use it to buy the Oxycontin to flip the money to make more money from the sale of the Oxycontin. That's just my theory. So Big L want to know, when is your boy Duffy going to come up here to sell more product, i.e. Oxy? So Uncle Clifford tells him the flood in Houston has the interstate backed up. So he's basically in Texas trying to come back to Mississippi, and he's the plug to get the Oxycontin to the Pynk. So Duffy is the connect. So Big L is basically like, listen, we got to do something about this, because if we don't make any money in 30 days, we going under. So Cliff is like, hush now, Big L, hush, 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 hush. And he was like, you know what, first you get a notice of default, and then you get foreclosure. And so that's what Clifford is telling him, like, just calm down. It ain't the worst. We ain't going just yet. So Big L tells him, I got 2 charges. Where's a nigga like me going to be able to get another job? And that's a fact. Big L did 2 stints in prison. How is a person in the South going to be able to survive when he can't get a job? This is where he's making money. And I think Uncle Clifford, he's not mean and harm towards Big L, but he doesn't get it. Like, I'm not trying to sell drugs for the luxury of it and for the, the thrill of it. This is a way of survival. And Big L's story is very similar to a lot of men in the Deep South who have priors. It's a survival. This is not to just, harm people. What else is a nigga like me with 2 charges going to be able to do to survive? And I thought that was very important. And I love those, I love those, serious moments they throw out there. I really do. So we basically see Cliff go into his car, and we see that it says past due. He reads this paper that reads past due. Uncle Clifford owed $55,128.34 on that loan, on that property. He is behind in paying his bills. He has not paid. And he owns it. That is serious. So he's in more of the hole than even Big L. So while he's reading it, he basically sees somebody basically, scaring him. Somebody broke in his car. Little Murder. And Little Murder's like, don't worry, I ain't going to shoot you. And he's like, little nigga, how you get in my car? He was like, I want to know how come you didn't pay my song. I gave you all that money to play my song and you didn't do it. And he was like, you basically did not get the crowd bumping with that everybody's doing. I can't make Mercedes, dance to your shit. And he said, but I thought she was your bottom bitch. So he was basically like, I can't make her do the shit. So he basically talks and he says something. And it's basically, I thought you basically was able to take the dick. So you didn't play my song and you took my money and you played me just like you played the fact that you couldn't take the dick. And he was like, you not flogging to begin with. He was like, I stay flogging. He's like, my dick is big, but my dreams are bigger. And then he basically says something and says, this is Uncle Clifford. If you want your music to be played, you got to play music that's going to get the crowd to whisper. And Little Murder snaps and says, they whisper enough. And he's implying about sexuality. So he didn't like that. So he's basically like, you got to make good music. That's all. So we leave with that scene. And we basically hear this rapper named Little Bad Cousin. And it's a song that I like called Chucalissa City. And in that background, we're basically seeing Chucalissa City while Mercedes is walking Blackie. That's her dog, Blackie Miles. So she bumps into the people in town, and even the kids, they love her. Everyone loves Sadie's. And Sadie's is really lovable. And if you really think about it, Sadie's is one of those people, she comes off mean, but she has a really sweet exterior. And I think she's a nicer person than Autumn. I just get that. Like, she's not stuck up. She's not sedity. And we see this guy named Maine. And Maine is really sweet on Mercedes. And he's basically letting her know, I'm going to be there for your last dance. And she like, how? With that ankle monitor? You still on house arrest. He was like, I got a little fat boy that go on babysit my little ankle bracelet. And you see him, and he's fat. And so what ends up happening is that she goes home and she gives Blackie Miles some water while she's basically receiving a phone call from her mother, Pastor Phony Patrice. And Pastor Phony Patrice says, I know that you see that I'm calling you because it basically run 3 times before it did that little clink. Listen, I need you to come over here to drop your tithes to the church. I can't stand Pastor Phony Patrice. All she care about is that money. So Pastor Phony Patrice is basically told by one of the secretaries is that, Miss Patrice, they need you up in the front of the church. And she tells the young lady, it's Sister Woodbine to you. And so while she gets up, the pastor of the church basically comes in and is like, what happened to your daughter who was going to bring over the money to the church? We need that money to secure that loan for the church. We need that 20% down payment. And so she was like, I'm going to get that for you. I'm going to get that for you. And so he says, to keep the church afloat, we need you to basically be tried out to basically preach one Sunday morning. So she basically starts feeling special because what she really wants is to be a pastor. She really wants her own church and she wants to be in the front. So she has a thing for that pastor, and the pastor takes a feather out her eye lash, and he says, I think I'm going to try you out one Sunday. And she feeling all warm and fuzzy and whatever. So then we go to Autumn. Now, this is what ties into a lot of the show for season 1. Autumn makes a phone call to FEMA, and she tells them, I'm looking for Lakeisha Savage and Selita Parsons because she got the 2 IDs. Because what she was going to do, she was going to basically use both of those IDs to scam. So Selita Parsons' body has been identified in the flood. But they still don't know anything about Lakeisha Savage. And then she says, one more person, Montavius Hill. And so they're like, no, we haven't, discovered him. And so the lady on the phone is like, from FEMA, is like, you should be happy, they can still be out there, And so she's like, okay, no, I'm not happy because one, Lakeisha Savage, I'm using her ID. And 2, Montavius Hill, I'm trying to get away from his ass because I'm scamming money from his account to send it to the dummy account, Lakeisha Savage, because I'm a scammer. So Promised Land Resort Casino is what Andre is putting together as a slide. And he's looking at photos and that he took of the patrons at the Pynk. And the elaborate photos of Promised Land. It really makes me want Promised Land to be there. But at the same token, knowing that it's going to displace people in the community, I'm not for it. So the next scene, Andre visits the Kyle plantation. And I can't stand them Kyle brothers, Wayne and Kyle, Wayne and Wyatt, especially Wyatt. And so Wayne says, why don't you pick some cotton? And Andre's like, excuse me? And he said, all folks that's visiting the Kyle plantation, they always want to pick some. They always want to take some home. It makes for a better souvenir. And he was like, no thanks. Yeah, like, nigga, I ain't picking cotton. My ancestors ain't picked cotton in what? 200, almost 200 years? Fuck you. So, pretty much what happens is Wyatt is basically not as smart as Wayne. Because Andre is like, I'm here to basically have you all sign your John Hancock on the business arrangement for the casino. So y'all land could be sold so that we can make this happen. And so Wyatt says, what's a John Hancock? And Wayne says, it's a signature. So Wayne and Wyatt, they sign to transfer the deed to the casino for Promised Land. But there's one problem. Wayne think that they don't need their brother Corbin. And Andre says, you're wrong. They need all of them because his name was in the will. So his father left the land with all 3 of them. And Wyatt said, the son of the maid basically wins again. So Corbin, the one that was in the fantasy room, is the son of the maid, the black maid. Their father had an affair with the maid and produced Corbin. But unlike most white men that would have a child with their housekeeper maid, he claims Corbin. And you're going to find out from Corbin that he's his favorite child. He didn't care for Wayne and Wyatt. So Andre says all signatories of all owners have to be filed by the county clerk in order to make the $6 million deal happen. And so he basically says, I'm going to talk to Corbin because, to be honest with you, we're black. I can get through to him more than you. So Nonoka County is where this whole story takes place. Nonoka County basically is going to be a historic deal. And it's going to be a historic commission for Andre because he's going to be the first black man to make money off of this deal. So Wyatt says he wants to lease. He don't want to sell. And all he's been doing since the father passed away, he's been blowing it on Pussy and Jameson. And Andre said, well, where can I find him? That's easy. You can find him right over there at the Pynk every Friday. So what happens is we see Mercedes letting the girls know that the Chucalissa challenges are going to be performing at that spot that she's going to buy for them. That's going to be the dance studio because the girls are sick and tired of practicing on asphalt, which I understand. And they're going to also get uniforms and they're all happy. And you see Terica's mother, Shell, is happy too. And then there's a guy in a car that say, bounce that booty, Sadie's, bounce that booty. And she's like, oh, hell no. So she runs. And so Shell tells Terica, Man, that dance studio can't open up soon enough. And then we get to the Pynk annual soap bowl. And it's basically an annual event. And this time it's to keep the Pynk afloat. So we basically see this Escalade rolling through. And Clifford is like, who coming here with the Escalade? While he's saying we take Bitcoin, cash, EBT, and whatnot. Is none other than Mayor Tyrell Ruffin, Uncle Clifford's cousin, who they don't like. Now, really, they don't like each other because he wants to basically institute the rule where you can't serve liquor at the club because your strip club, basically showcase nude girls, which is common in a lot of places. So he's like, the patrons like their titties with liquor. He was like, listen, I'm the mayor. I could do worse. I could basically have y'all all shut down. It violates nuisance law. So I understand where Mayor Ruffin is coming from with this, because this thing about the titties and liquor, most cities are like, if you basically are going to serve liquor, the girls gotta be covered. You can't have a champagne room. You can't have fantasy room. They can basically wear pasties, but that's the only new thing. They can't do nothing else. Now, in Florida, Miami is different. But I understood where he was coming from. But these men don't want to care about that. They want to see their titties with their liquor. So he's like, no liquor for nudity. So Clifford makes Mercedes and Autumn clean the car when Autumn has a flashback about the flood where she tried to save her daughter. And she blames Mercedes for locking her inside the car, and she has a panic attack. And so the mayor basically says, while she was supposed to clean his car, this shit better be free. Mayor Ruffin is a nasty, arrogant bastard with his nasty gold teeth. I can't stand him. So what happens is, while Mercedes basically drives her home, she basically tries to walk her, to the home. And Autumn's like, I don't need you to walk me to my house. And she was like, I'm just trying to bring some Southern hospitality your way. And she tries to get inside. And Mercedes like, ain't you going to, offer a bitch some Kool-Aid, a red drink? And Autumn's like, I don't do Kool-Aid. And Mercedes says, and I see you don't do curtains either. And I'm like, that was funny. You got to understand that. So we see a flashback in there where she points, where there's photos of her daughter and Montavius Hill. And they looked like they wasn't really happy. And that they were only staying together because of the daughter. So we see Lakeisha Savage, Haley Colton, Autumn Knight going to the spot at the laundromat, and she's using a computer. And she goes on a Telex to transfer $9,000 as Lakeisha Savage. And she withdraws from this account, ended in 4170 from the bank, and it's a cash pickup. And she's taking that money from Montavius Hill's account. Okay? And you're going to see that in the episode. So Mercedes tells the Trinity, which is Keyshawn, her, and Gidget, this bitch Autumn stay perpetrating because she light-skinned and everything. Fake ass bitch. So this chef basically quits because he don't get a raise. So he's like, since you're not going to give me a raise, I'm stealing your pots. So Clifford's like, oh, so you going to take the pots because you ain't got a raise? He was like, yep. And he walks out with the pots. And Clifford's about to fall out and cry and everything. And so Mercedes tells him, rule 24.5, no crying at the Pynk. And Clifford's like, you know all the penal codes of the Pynk. And so Big L basically got to take over as the chef of the night because he's making the wings. And he makes the wings like his grandmother likes them with bourbon. And Clifford complains and he's like, but hold up. You lost the chef because you couldn't give him a raise. So don't complain about my wings. So Little Murder comes in and crashes the kitchen and says, yo, I want you to hear this new song. And so Big L like, who the fuck this nigga? So he basically listening to the new music, and he's basically like, yo, this is flogging, which means like it ain't hitting on nothing. So Cliff says, you need to holler at DJ Never Scared to produce your tracks. And he's like, oh, so it's like that? He's like, yeah, you need something that people can bump and grind to, you know? And so Little Murder basically is saying to him, oh, people can't dance to my music like people getting gas from your wings. And so he's like, my wings? He's like, yeah, they complaining and shit. That's why your girl, Toy, was basically farting on that man. Because if you remember, Toy basically had to go to the bathroom, and Mike Tay told you to stay away from those wings. So what ends up happening is that Little Murder tells him, if you want these people to stay, you know, and be, you know, content, the secret is you gotta put your wings, you gotta mix them with weed and butter. You gotta bake them in cannabis butter. So Little Murder and Clifford bond over the cannabis buttered pan-seared wings. And them shits taste good. And I want to try them shits too. So what happens is Clifford basically is starting to kind of feel him. He's starting to feel the little kid. And so what ends up happening is that we see Keyshawn basically talking about how I gotta basically pump because her milk is full. And so Mercedes like, when you gonna get your titties back on track? She was like, I actually kind of enjoy my titties, you know, like this breastfeeding stuff, because it keeps them out of Derek's mouth. Because cross-contamination can cause the baby an infection if the baby's sucking on the titties and Derek is sucking on the titties. So we know Derek loved black titties. He loved them. So basically, Autumn is looking in the room and want to know what these two guys are talking about, which is Corbin and Andre. So Corbin is back tricking on black girls, and while she eating the wings. And so what ends up happening, Mercedes says one man in the room is looking to spend money, but two men looking to make money. It's a business deal. So what happens is Autumn walks in and is like, hi, Andre. And Corbin's like, I thought you never came here. He was like, I've never been in here before. And she must know my name because she's intuitive. And then you see Mercedes walks in and is like, hi, Andre. And it's like, how she know your name? He's like, I don't know. So then she's like, how you like your liquor? Brown or white? And he was like, looking over that Autumn like, I prefer it to be white. So she slapped her booty. Mercedes like, I see some dudes can't handle them a Mullen and Monroe. But Corbin can, because he loves black. He got a thing for black women. And I think that's the whole thing with the Kyle brothers. They know that him leasing that land, he'll make more money from it. And he'll pass that wealth down to some black children. Okay? That's why they really want to sell it. They want to let it go because they don't want Corbin to have his wealth go into the hands of some black babies and a black woman. I'm telling you, racism ain't no joke. White supremacy really ain't no joke. So anyway, we see them negotiating a sale. So Andre trying to tell him like, why you don't want to sell the Kyle estate. And he's like, listen, I want to lease it. Okay? And he's like, I see legacy with this, okay? And I'm trying to basically get what's owed to me. They never claimed me as a cow until my father passed away. And you know they owe me, and you know they owe us. And so what happens is he basically tells him, I'm here to facilitate a sale. I'm not here to negotiate a lease. He's like, but come on, man. I could make $10 million from leasing as opposed to what? The $6 million, which is going to come down to only $2 million when they split it up amongst themselves. And I'm going to be honest with you, I agree with Kyle on that. I would lease the land. I wouldn't sell it. I wouldn't sell it at all. So what ends up happening is that he basically gives him a bribe, a kickback. And so he's like, Andre, you trying to bribe me? And he's like, no, this is reparations for what they owed us for years of what they done to our people. And so basically he tells them, I don't do kickbacks and I don't do bribes. He say, but Mayor Ruffin done more for less. Let him know your beloved Mayor Ruffin has definitely taken kickbacks. So he offers him, it looks like he offered him about 3, maybe five stacks. Now, I'm not mad at Corbin wanting to lease. I would hold on to it too. But basically, what ends up happening is that in the champagne room, Autumn is hearing all this that goes on. And so she's really ecstatic because, you know, Autumn is a nosy chick. And so Autumn does a new dance for Andre. And, you know, what basically goes on is that she's basically tells him, I said, you too good for a lap dance and a kickback. And he's like, oh, no. I'm too good for a kickback, but not for a lap dance. And she basically starts, you know, talking to him, and she shows him a scar, and it's a C-section. And then he shows her a scar, and it's basically from when he was born with his heart open outside of his chest. And so what occurs and what we learn is that Autumn is really good, smart with business. And she basically says, run your money through a shell account, okay? A shell company incorporated in Delaware. That way your identity is protected. You're telling on yourself, Autumn. You're telling on yourself. So what ends up happening next is we basically learn some things about Little Miss Autumn. Because Autumn ended up tipping out and said, here's $150, Uncle Clifford. Okay? And here is, you know, the other money. And he was like, okay. So they like, how the hell you basically get a whole bunch of stacks? So she's like, I basically, you know, just danced. And so Mercedes like, I ain't never had a lower my morale for niggas at the club, at the Pynk. And so she gets on her face and she tells her, you know, like she tries to basically throw her face like, I know how to get money more than you. And I only been at the Pynk for a week. So what happens is Uncle Clifford receives the business card to find out who this man was giving stats. And she was like, listen, Corbin gave the money to Andre for the kickback. He didn't want the kickback, so he gave it to me. And that's why Mercedes assumed that she basically fucked him in the champagne room, but she didn't. So Mercedes is jealous. So what happens is Uncle Clifford tells her, next time, cheat me. Okay? Next time, cheat me. All right? So then what ends up happening is, by the way, I still didn't forget where the ID of yours. So Mercedes hands him the ID. Okay. So he's like, oh, Lakeisha Savage, you don't look like a Lakeisha. So, okay. So you a Scorpio. So your birthday's coming up. And she was like, yeah. He was like, ain't no Scorpios born in May. He was like, now look here. You done brought your little pretty high yellow ass up in this club. All right? And you gonna give me what I need. Until then, no ID. Okay? But he finds out something about the bribe money. And he's like, where does all this money that came from anyway? And she tells him that Andre got the bribe money from Corbin because it had to do with, them talking about the sale of, Promised Land coming to Chucalissa and how it's going to be a casino. And he's like, a casino? He's like, yeah, it's going to be a casino. You didn't know? And he pretends like he never knew. Like he always knew. Clifford didn't know. He just found out. Okay? And so what happens is that we basically learn that Uncle Clifford is going to use that girl, Autumn, to basically get info if she want to stay in the pub to work. She ain't going to get her ID until she get more info. But she better come up with a better ID. So what happens also, in the meantime, we see phony Pastor Patrice pull up at Mercedes' house and said, you were supposed to meet me at the church to pass off the tithes. And Mercedes told her, I'm going to need them 20 stacks by the end. Because early on that episode, she offered to help Uncle Clifford. And Uncle Clifford she said to him, how much do you need? And he tells her, you got 55 stacks. And she goes, like, nigga, you didn't tell me it was all that. So, Pastor Phony Patrice don't want to give the money because she was like, we still need that church loan. And she's like, I've been letting y'all hold it for long enough. You need to give it up because I'm about to open my gym, my dance studio. And plus, I need to help Uncle Clifford as well. So what ends up happening towards the very end, Clifford is going in the car because, he's about to go home for the night. But he's kind of distraught because he's like, I didn't know that they trying to tear down. They trying to move this casino into my club that I'm already I'm in the hole trying to save. I'm in the hole for 55 stacks. So while he's opening, the glove compartment, I don't really know cars like that because I live in the city and I don't drive or ride. I take the bus, so forgive me. So he opens the top compartment of his car, and what falls out is a burner CD that has been produced and created by Little Murder. Okay? And Clifford's like, I ain't that old. Like, you burn a CD. Like, you could have just basically, text me the track and so forth. Like, what's going on? And that's how it ends. Now, before I finish, I'm going to say something. I really thought that this was going to be like an hour for me to basically review this. But I'm going to tell you something. I love this show. Now, I've seen all the episodes, like literally all the episodes. And I'm going to tell you, I'm basically going to go back and forth. I'm going to do a review of episode 3. And then tomorrow, I'm going to re-review episode 2. Season 2, episode 1. And I'm going to do 1, 2, 3 of season 1, 2, 3. Episodes 1, 2, 3 of season 2. And then I'm going to come back and I'm going to do 4, 5, 6. And then I'm going to come back and do that way so I can catch up. So thank you for listening. Share, subscribe if you haven't. Hit the notification bell to receive future notices on my uploaded content. And comment And I'll be back later on with another review. Later.